The purpose of the VanKim and Nelson article about vigorous physical activity is noted on page 8. It was to examine the association of vigorous physical activity with mental health, perceived stress, and socializing in a national sample of four-year college students. The hypotheses are also noted on page 8. They were 1. Meeting vigorous physical activity recommendations is associated with better mental health and lower perceived stress. 2. Socializing will partially mediate the relationship between vigorous physical activity and mental health, and between vigorous physical activity and perceived stress. And 3. That race and sex will moderate the relationship between vigorous physical activity and mental health, as well as between vigorous physical activity and perceived stress. The sample is detailed on page 8 and 9. It was 14,804 undergraduate students drawn from the Harvard School of Public Health study of college health behaviors, which is a national sample of undergraduate students attending 94 four-year colleges in the United States. The sample included 9,279 females. They did not report a mean age, but 18 to 20 was the most common age. For males and females, white was also the largest race group. Participants were voluntary and received the link via email. When they participated, they were put in a drawing for a prize. Concerns about generalizability include the self-selection factor and the fact it was more females. If we're thinking about generalizing to other populations, we need to also keep in mind that college samples tend to be weird samples. Vigorous physical activity was operationalized in terms of one question from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which can be found on page 8. That question's pretty specific. It read, think back over the past 7 days. On how many days did you exercise or participate in physical activity for at least 20 minutes that made you sweat or breathe hard, such as basketball, soccer, running, swimming laps, bicycling, or similar aerobic activities? I don't know exactly how you can tell if you're sweating, but anyway, when you're swimming, that is. Mental health was discussed on pages 8 and 11. It was assessed using the five-item mental health scale from the short form 36 health scale. Perceived stress was measured with the shortened 4-item version of the Cohen Perceived Stress Scale, as noted on page 11. Socializing was measured with 2 questions, and those are mentioned on page 12. Sex and race were measured with 2 relatively standard demographic questions. Hypothesis 1 and 2 were supported by the results. Vigorous physical activity is associated with better mental health and lower perceived stress, and socializing partially mediates relationships between vigorous physical activity and mental health, and between vigorous physical activity and perceived stress. Hypothesis 3 was not supported. Race and sex did not moderate the relationship between vigorous physical activity and mental health, or vigorous physical activity and perceived stress. So, how does this relate to our knowledge? First, vigorous physical activity is associated with lower levels of perceived stress. It may be in part because physical activity provides a chance to socialize.